Hello, everybody, and welcome to Outlawed Thoughts episode 35? 36?
35.
I'm not. Yeah, 35? Okay, we're at 35. That's a good number. That's a nice, I was going to say it's a round number, but it's not. It's, free read Coverdale. The Twitter campaign is up. James Lindsay support. Oh, shit.
Also,
Hashtag
free Alex Jones
Coverdale.
from controlled opposition called Elon Musk.
You know what? I'm gonna have
Alex
a hot
Jones
take.
actually had a mature and thought out response.
Hot take. I don't
the
like.
free Alex
I didn't.
Jones stuff.
I like his response because it's calculated and it seems like he's playing like ball with Musk, and that's what I think he's kind of got going on. But if I'm being completely honest with you, it wasn't a very Alex Jones response.
It wasn't.
I wanted you musty Dutch fucking just a fucking tirade. Like I wanted him to just attack you.
All right.
Yeah.
It was Alex Jones when he respects you.
Mm-hmm.
God.
We got a more respectable Alex Jones.
Yeah.
This is dignified.
I don't know.
Dignified waters.
We also need to
frogs
free
dance.
Joshua at large because
Yes.
that'll do numbers for
So
my
I
wallet.
have some insight into some of the Twitter stuff because I had a buddy of mine. So I had a friend who worked with Twitter previously who has gotten asked to go back to Twitter
Ooh.
after the last group of people were fired. So he was mentioning something about, what he kind of has done is he's might be like going back through all the old employment records and just finding people that he thinks is going to be good who kind of got purged from Twitter before when new management came in. So basically, I mean, I know everybody saw, I think that I'll see if I can find it on Twitter. Here's the thing. I'm late. The show is late. I need to intro people real quick because I forgot. So we got Ryan Kurt. You are the co-host over at Break the Cycle with Joshua Smith. Awesome. And I've been on that show. I think
That was the first episode I ever watched.
yeah, I think that
with
was
you as the guest.
I think I'll be on eventually again. I think maybe eventually I'm working on a book, and so that's been a whole process, and I'm finally kind of like laying out all the hard work of it now is getting underway. But I've been working on this thing for the Joe Vogler, this character from up in my state. But your guys' show is awesome, obviously. I've known Josh for a while, so when I saw you were on there, that's great. And I have continued the saga of referring to you only as Ian in the chat. So
Yeah. Some people have started taking to spelling my name Rian, which that was what my mom intended how my name should be spelled. But a friend of hers, 2 weeks before I was born, had a son that she named Rian. So she was like, well, I can't do that. Otherwise, it'll seem like I'm copying her. So that's why my name is spelled like the normal way, which is kind of less cool because I had, growing up, I went to a private Catholic, elementary and middle school. In my class of 20, we had 3 Ryans and a Curtis.
That's awesome.
And so everybody just called me faggot.
Yeah. that's how that normally goes. If you're not the coolest person with that name, then you're automatically the worst name.
Well, I couldn't go by my last name, and that's honestly true. Most kids at that school just called me faggot.
So
Clayton's not the coolest guy, but he is the raddest guy.
So my name is weird because Leighton this is not the normal spelling. Everybody's used to seeing Layton.
Yeah.
The way that you say it is completely the fucking same. The only The LAY is British and Middle Eastern, both. Like anybody who came from that area, all spell it that way.
Mhm.
But everybody who came from like Poland or Russia or like other areas of Europe, or which is where this one comes from, Ireland or Scotland. In both Ireland and Scotland, they spell it with the EIGHTON, and so like from what I've understand as far as going back with like genes and stuff, that's where that name originally comes from. But my parents all had this thing, and this is I love telling people this because it's so just next level stages of retarded. But my parents decided that they were
Betterman.
all of my brothers, including myself, with middle names that were had something to do with either Hebrew or Hawaiian. So, for instance, my middle name is the shortest in the entire family, and it is Ilkipa, which it basically means it's a rough translation of Joseph in Hawaiian Hebrew, which isn't really even a thing, but it is. It's like
You know what my middle name is?
oh god,
Joseph.
is it really?
Hmm. And in that class
middle
of
name is
20 kids
Joseph.
with 3 Ryans, there was another Ryan Joseph.
So you're just.
what my
So
middle
this is
name
the
is?
calamity because I have three. I have a first name, a middle name, and a last name that I can't use as a real good first name. And you have three. You have
Three
three
first,
names
middle,
that you,
and last names.
and you couldn't use any of them anyway.
Yeah, man.
Oh, that's
You'll never guess what my middle name is.
if I did, it'd probably be racist.
I could be
The most
incredibly
common middle name.
insensitive here and say
It's the
Muhammad.
most common name in the world. So
Is it? Oh, fuck. Smith.
No.
Kareem Smith.
Muhammad is the most common name in the world, right?
there you go.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
No
Wait,
shit.
Muhammad
Is that
name.
I
actually
didn't know
right?
that.
Yeah, go figure. Right.
So is your last name pronounced Mays?
Yes, Kareem Muhammad Mays.
I like that name. That has like a good ring to it.
Okay.
No, so so my younger brothers, right? So my name's Yokipa, and I said that was the shortest, but this is
How
the
many
funny.
younger brothers do you have?
I have 3 younger brothers and 1 older one.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any sisters, no.
So you are the second of 5.
Yes.
I'm the third of 5.
Jesus. All brothers?
3 brothers, 1 sister.
Okay, there you go. At least you get some variety in there. But man, I don't think I would have. I feel bad if I had ended up having a sister. I would have felt bad for her. That would have fucking sucked growing up. Because we lived in a cabin. Well, we lived in a 1-room cabin growing up.
Oh,
Like I can't imagine what it would have been like. It was almost luck that there was no girls in my family because otherwise we would have been like, well, we got to build like a shed onto the house and like, just
wait, then what did your mom do?
Oh, my mom was like, my mom wasn't like around as much as like my dad was in the picture as long. And so I don't have like, but we didn't have like a bathroom in my, the place I grew up. So we would always leave anyway, to go do all that stuff. And then we had like an outhouse if we needed to use like the bathroom.
What do you think of anarcho-primitivism?
I lived it. No, we lived. We had 7 people in my family, and we lived in about 600 square foot 1-room cabin for up until I was like 14 and a half.
We need to abolish. Layton's like, we need to abolish agriculture. We need to abolish electricity and go back to tribal society and no government.
Yeah.
My wife and I have decided 5 is probably going to be the limit on a like 900 square foot house. You're just rocking 7 in a 600 square foot cabin.
Oh, I wouldn't.
We have 2 floors here.
I wouldn't suggest that to my worst enemy. It was not a fun, not a necessarily fun like upbringing, but it does teach you how to take care of yourself pretty fucking quick. Because you gotta be you gotta be kind of prepped to deal with some shit if you're like, living that kind of lifestyle and stuff. And
You make socialism work.
yeah. Oh,
Hey,
Jesus,
Leighton,
David, I do not envy your situation. That's a rough one. Cause you're like, you have 4 younger siblings. One is a brother, 3 are sisters. Yeah, you're like you have to be the one. David is the chosen one. that's how
Joe
that ends
saying,
up working.
He's the
Ryan
Brady
is
Bunch.
there and
Okay.
spelling my name like
So my
like I called him out for it earlier.
So my parents, when they were giving my other brothers names, they decided to stick to the same rule of thumb that I just explained before with mine, except they just didn't really care about how long the names were. So one of my brother's middle name is Maui Mua Aole Palole.
Maui Mua.
Yeah, and it's written on his fucking birth certificate. Damn it! It's a dude. One of my brothers, when he ordered his birth certificate, they had to charge more and send it, and it took longer because the name printing on it was wrong the first time around because the fucking thing wouldn't fit on the paper's edge. And the printers they have, if you need to get a custom name done, they have to send it off separate, and it takes longer.
Man, Leighton, that's a long name, Maui Mua. It's like a great leap forward.
So I think and then the other ones is so there's Maui Mua Ole Palole, and then there is there's fuck me. I'm forgetting the pronunciation of it, and that's stupid. But
are they gonna help you fight off the feds when you guys secede with the Joe Vogler party?
So one of them means mullet fish gathering, and the other one means always forward, never straight. So both of their middle names are fucking sentences. They're
so one of them is just Andrew Yang.
Yeah, dude, it's absurd. It's like my parents were like, I want to write a novel, but instead I just want to have.
I'm gonna write a novel, and it's gonna be Finnegan's Wake.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to tell people when they meet some of my family, because I'm like, dude, you understand that his middle name is a literal sentence? Like, if you've ever looked at what Pablo Picasso's real name was, have you guys ever seen that?
No.
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Is it like something out of like Spy Kids?
Oh, it sounds like it sounds like something out of like a well, you'll see. You're never gonna be able to, like, you can't guess Pablo Picasso's full name because it's absurd.
It's Pablo Adolf Hitler Picasso.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, here we go. So this is Pablo Diego Jose Francisco de Paulo Juan Norminzo Maria de los Remedios Capriano de Sestima Trinidad Ruiz y Picasso. That's his full name.
I should do that with my kids' middle names, just like some of my favorite quotes ever. Just that's their entire middle name.
Pablo Escobar.
Is that what you're gonna do?
I was just watching a documentary on Barry Seal, so I have Pablo Escobar in my head because they were talking about him, and I'm like, Pablo Escobar Picasso is a hilarious alias to ever use because it's just, I deal paintings and coke like a boss.
I'm not actually gonna do that. I don't think my wife would let me get away with having my child's middle name be an intellectual, someone that has found something more interesting than sex, which is an Aldous Huxley quote.
Oh, God. So this story has continued to intrigue me, and so I feel like we should talk about it. There's a bunch of kids got stabbed over in Idaho, and they were all students at this one college, and I don't think they really have like a definitive suspect yet. Seems like it's a fucking kind of gonna be one of those crazy cases, and there's a lot of people theorizing about possibilities like serial killers and shit like that.
Can I mention that it's in Moscow, Idaho?
Mm-hmm.
What a very Moscow thing to happen.
Yeah, I was listening to a news report on it earlier in the week, and they said Moscow, and I was like, wait a minute, this happened in Russia? And then they said Idaho, and I was like, I thought that looked like American or English on all the writing, It's like
my hometown of Independence, and everybody's always like, Missouri? Nope, Independence, Iowa.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to hell, Michigan. Well, I guess Whitmer's really making that a reality. So there you go. The people are
that's just the whole state at this
hell,
point.
Michigan
people
is
are
Michigan.
stupid enough to vote her back in. I don't believe that one was rigged. Although, if you want to talk about Arizona, I think there's some weird stuff going on there.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I mean, I've seen some videos of like Gen Zers and whatnot being interviewed on the streets, and not knowing what a country is, and it's like, okay, now I understand why the people that get voted into office get voted in.
To be fair, if they don't know what a country is, you could convince them that, hey, all you need is your local community, and that's all that should exist, and that can create extreme decentralization. So,
except these people would also be screaming their lungs out for free healthcare.
Yeah, the exact same group.
It's about a 1-to-1 correlation.
Okay. I mean, what's interesting is in a libertarian society, someone would come up with a way to do that. Probably. I have no doubt in my mind figure something out.
Sorry.
Probably be some blockchain project that, hey, you can do this and pay it forward. I don't know.
We're gonna get into that blockchain project horse shit. I got some bones to pick with you.
All right, have fun with
the rest of your fucking Dogecoin peddling ilk.
Okay, fine. Hey, just wait till Deep State Don gets back in, if he does, and he'll just print another 11 trillion. It'll be fine. You'll need a down payment to buy watermelon. Have fun.
I know exactly what JC's talking about. The Joseph Stalin Georgia
Wait, the Joseph Stalin Confederate memes? Oh man, I gotta find these and start sharing them on Facebook.
So I guess I found this story which goes over the more generalities of this kind of stabbing thing that happened, and I figured this one will be better. So no suspect in slaying of 4 college students, Idaho police say. The students, all close friends, were found dead at an off-campus rental home around noon on Sunday, and officials said they likely were killed several hours earlier. So, from my understanding, one of the boyfriends of the people came to the place, and that's who actually found everybody and called it in. Police in the college town of Moscow said Wednesday that they have not identified a suspect or found a weapon in the weekend slaying of 4 University of Idaho students in a rental house near campus. Authorities continue to believe the attack was targeted, but walked back a previous statement that there was no threat to the public. Investigators are working to follow up on all leads and identify a person of interest, Moscow Police Chief James Fry. James Fry? Isn't that the name of the guy from Futurama?
No, Philip J. Fry.
Philip J. Fry. Oh, you're right. Said at a news conference, we do not have a suspect at this time, and that individual is still out there. We cannot say that there is no threat to the community. We need to be aware of our surroundings, Fry said. All 4 victims were stabbed with a knife, the chief reported. There are no sign of forced entry, and a door was found open by the first police officer to arrive. 2 other people were found alive and unhurt in a large room. I'm not going to go into what they shared, Fry said. We're focused on everyone, he added. So, doesn't seem to be an actual solve to the case from their end at this point. They don't really have any kind of leads on suspects. I know there's a lot of speculation online, and I've seen a good deal of like people kind of just covering the fact that um, there were a lot of people locally talking about other people who've gone missing and stuff within the last like short amount of time. And then I found this story just today, which is the one I brought up previously, but I want to actually read through it, which was interesting. But Idaho police, dog found skin head to tail is unrelated to college student murders. Detectives say there is no link between a 12-year-old dog that was found skinned and 4 college students who were found stabbed in Moscow, Idaho. Pamela Colbert's neighbors found her lost dog, a 12-year-old mini Australian Shepherd, completely skinned just down the road from her, which is several miles from the scene of the murders that occurred off campus. Colbert, 78, told Fox News that she remembered at Lada County Sheriff's Office supervisor telling her this hasn't been done by an animal. This was a human that did this. Some locals feared the grotesque incidents could be related, but law enforcement dispelled those rumors on Monday. So one of the things I've been seeing was people online were covering the fact that this was like something a serial killer would do, and so this is pointing towards it being a serial killer.
But
They're
usually that would be the step before they
Yeah.
start
Right.
murdering people.
so
I mean, it doesn't. Sometimes it is normal that they do kill but sometimes they do kill people before. They're just some psychopaths out there.
Well, like typical pattern of behavior for psychopathy would be that they kill small animals before they kill humans, and it's usually several years between the two.
From my understanding, this event here happened before the murders. They're talking about it in the past tense, that's why, but I'm not sure how long, and no one really has mentioned in the story because they just say before. This guy's dog also, I guess, was or this is the neighbor who saw the dog, and he's stating that it was done with a knife and stuff like that. Obviously, the FBI, Idaho State Police, and Moscow Police Department are investigating. So this is they've got feds and everybody else involved now in this one. And yeah, so dog seemed like a nothing burger as far as like possible connection if it's not that long ago. But I could see if it happened like a year ago or something, it being connected. But if it just happened, then yeah, it doesn't really make sense because it would need to be happening, beforehand.
Okay.
Didn't OJ admit on Twitter?
Yeah. If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit.
I mean, he basically wrote a whole book admitting he did it.
That is true.
Someone should tell OJ you don't work for the federal government. You can't just do that.
I mean, he can. He did.
But he ended up in jail, I think, eventually, did he not?
Yeah. It was for, like, stealing his own merchandise or something.
He was trying to steal signed merchandise of his own company or some shit. It was weird. It didn't make any sense. It seems like he just got caught doing something incredibly stupid.
Yeah.
Like,
and then they were like, we know you did it, but we can't like charge you on it again for double jeopardy, so we're just gonna get the max we can for the new thing we found you for.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it is it's an interesting story, this whole stabbing thing. I've been looking into it as I go along, as far as trying to figure out just like, because it seems to me like it's gotta be, if there was no forced entry, but they found a door open and that whole thing, and there were 2 people who weren't killed that are in the in there, I have to assume it's going to be something random as shit, because otherwise you would think they would have all ended up getting killed. Or,
well, the report said it was a large house.
Yeah, that's true.
There were 2 people when the police officers showed up that were uninjured, but you mentioned earlier that like it was somebody's boyfriend that found
Yeah.
the people in
Yeah.
there. So I would guess one of those two people is the boyfriend.
Oh, that's actually true. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. I
And
don't know.
the other person was probably just like stoned out of his fucking mind upstairs.
Yeah,
Probably.
I know they originally had claimed that they claimed that their first suspect that they were like publicly mentioned was the one of the ex-boyfriends of one of the girls that was stabbed. But as they started looking into it, it turned out that that guy was actually like friends with the family and didn't really have an MO and had an alibi and everything else. So it was like, yeah, it's definitely not this guy. So you're gonna have to like try to figure it out. And now the cops are just going, well, we don't even have a suspect. Like we're we're trying to figure this shit out.
Have we considered that it might be OJ?
I mean,
You know who it could be? Hillary Clinton.
yeah. I
she,
mean, her
she
death
wouldn't do
toll's
any
higher.
dirty work directly.
Yeah, that's true. Her
Dog
death
being
tolls.
killed.
Her,
Yeah.
again, I'm watching a Barry Seal documentary, so Hillary Clinton killing people is already pretty high up in my head.
Yeah, but we'll just have
Oh,
to
I'm
wait
sorry,
4 years for the
seriously.
Netflix documentary to come out, and then we might have a decent idea of what actually happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
Netflix will definitely.
you can only see so many people hang themselves from trees and shoot themselves in the stomach with shotguns and have it get ruled a suicide before your eyebrows start going, really? Like, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah, I have some questions about Seth Rich. Oh, hey, what?
hey, I, yeah, well, yeah, the documentary I'm watching right now.
Although maybe Hillary and them won't do too much because they lost some of their funding from a piece of crap exchange. Every exchange that exists is garbage.
Mm-hmm. The only use I have for an exchange is it auto invests every month, and then I
Yeah.
transfer it to a wallet.
Yeah, that's what I do, staking, and then I just use it for staking.
Yeah, but
So here's one.
FTX didn't just give to the Democratic Party though. The like co-CEO or like second in command gave 23 million to the Republican Party as well. They were just trying to buy their way into Washington.
It seems that it was working for a while. I mean, heck,
Mhm.
to me, we actually know now. They were sending money to Ukraine. Ukraine was funneling back into FTX and then funneling back to the Democratic Party. When Zelensky wasn't buying another mansion and being clown. I mean, like, this is the most ridiculous war. Like, all right, honey, let's pose for Vogue. Hey, isn't this great? Just ridiculous.
So, the other one that I saw that was going around was the fact that the Colorado Springs Q nightclub shooting that just went on is a gay club, a lot of drag performers and stuff like that. So it seems like it was a targeted attack. The guy's a grandchild of a like senator or somebody who has a political position within the state that this happened in, so that seems strange to me. But on top of that, then it came out that just like all these other people, this person was also being monitored by the FBI. And it's like, oh, so you know that whole like MK Ultra thing? I'm real like that's the one conspiracy I'm like, so the government admits to doing this, but then they're like, well, we don't do it anymore. It's okay. And I'm like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
We were
yeah,
moderating them by, slipping lithium
Yeah,
into their
I
water.
they
mean,
never lie, man. You think they'd lie?
I don't know. Last I checked, the government's version of monitoring and my version of monitoring are two very different fucking things. Because the government's version of monitoring normally means sticking their fucking size 13 foot up the ass of whatever they see. So you end up with a situation where I attend that they are fucking involved in this in some fucking way. In the
Well,
same way that I think most of these shootings have Yeah, what is it? The one where they didn't go into the building for like 45 fucking minutes, and then
Uvalde.
Yeah.
yeah, Uvalde, that shooting, that entire
Mhm.
fucking school was part of an FBI pilot program, and all the kids were supposed to be being monitored for terroristic threats and a bunch of other shit because they were trying to curb like bullying and
Well,
online terrorism and other shit. And so that school was part of that pilot program, which means that kid was being fucking monitored. And it's like, so how many of these people are you not looking at? like, let's see if there's a correlation there. Like,
Yeah, the only two one-to-one correlations with like mass shooters and are that they've been being monitored by the FBI and that they're on SSRIs.
yeah,
monitored. But here's the
Mhm.
funny thing: we know now that the FBI will literally entrap people and tell them like, "Hey, you don't have a girl, you don't have friends, but hey, you could be a hero if you do that." Or I don't know exactly what they tell people, but I know January 6th and all those other situations, there was a lot of time where they would trick people into, going into a situation and doing something bad. And now I wonder how many times the FBI and the intelligence agencies are like, "Yeah, go do this," and then
yeah.
someone
And now I'm
I
seeing,
don't think
and,
they
and
so
this
much
is this is
go
9 hours ago, and now we have this headline here.
I'm not saying they say go do it directly, but they give them everything.
Yeah, but they like kind of ramp them up and get them all going. It's like the pregame speech where they're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, we're angry and
Well, I think it's
we're
very
gonna do something about it." And
I think it's
gonna-
very similar to how they do how they did back in the day with like online recruitment for ISIL groups and things like that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the same
that's
shit.
what I was gonna
It's
say.
very
Like,
similar. They're just gonna find somebody that fits their profile. They're gonna send them a message from an account that seems friendly, get into a conversation with them, and just
Mhm.
slowly radicalize them. Like that's I think, what do we see all these people being on? Well, it's all Discord
Yeah.
and these communities where you can have, like on Discord especially, this is why Discord's a fed fucking just crawling with feds constantly, is because that platform allows you to have a group of 2, 3, 4, 500 people, and most of those accounts can be dead and you'll never fucking know it, because as long as the Discord's like got people fluctuating chats and making it appear as though it's popular, you can just be sitting in what is basically a data collection room
Yes.
and be just
it only takes 40 or 50 people. To
Yeah,
keep a
it's
Discord
exactly.
going when there's
Yeah.
2,000 people in there.
To start
Yeah.
the Syrian quote unquote civil war, if you want to call it that, which really I don't consider a civil, but they got contractors and tell people in the intelligence and say, "Oh, isn't Assad bad? Oh, he's a dictator," and they find people who don't like him. Then they get those people to go rally people and get out and say, "Oh man, he's a dictator. Let's do this." So yeah, they stir the pot and they give all the conditions, and basically they just get someone to act it out. Then they say, "Oh my God, look what this happened. Can't somebody help these people?" Oh, what do we want to do? And it always conveniently lines up with what the special interests want. Oh, we want more gun bans. Huh? There was just a shooting in a school. Well, I guess we'll ban this. I guess we'll ban that. Just do it slowly, ban one thing at a time. Get Sleepy Joe or Deep State Dawn, Graphene Deep State Dawn, who I find it funny. Everybody's like, "Oh my God, he's back on Twitter." I'm like, he's on Truth Social. He doesn't care. And you guys sat there and got into a poll and got in fights over this. I'm like, he probably ain't gonna come back. It was funny.
Well,
But
I think Trump might very well, and we haven't didn't talk about that, but obviously Trump got unbanned from Twitter via a poll that Elon Musk set up.
which is weird to me too.
Yeah.
If you're gonna
At
do
one
it,
time,
CEO.
democracy was not the god that failed.
Honestly, like I don't think it mattered because he said he's not coming. To me,
somebody actually made a
Well,
good
what
point
it
on
does
Twitter.
matter is you can access his old tweets now.
Yeah,
and man, some of those are legendary.
Well, it also was kind of a
That's
big
really
middle
not
finger
really
to a lot of the. It was also a big middle finger to a lot of the to the left wingers anyway, because a lot of them make comments about the Jan 6 stuff, and now you have access to literally the tweets he was making that day. And so a lot of those I've seen have been being used. People are now being able to just quote tweet people with those tweets, which is what should have been happening this entire time, but hasn't been able to go on because you can't even. People don't realize, like, you would get your account banned if I went and posted a screenshot of an old Trump tweet, because Twitter views that as superseding the ban, even though you're the one posting it. Yeah, and so this is what I've kind of been seeing running around the rumors with everybody online. So Trump actually has a contract with Truth that prevents him from tweeting on the Bird app before he posts on Truth. Has to be at least a 6-hour difference. So I have heard this being said, and everybody's been kind of commenting on it. I have a feeling Trump will break that contract, and I think he has every intentions to break that contract and just eat whatever the cost is. The reason I don't think he's doing it yet is because that's just not strategic, right? Everybody is building up on that Twitter account, and everybody's following him. He's got like over 900 million or something now. So
900 million?
Or 90 million, rather. Sorry.
Already?
Yeah,
he
was like
1 million like 2 days ago.
Oh, yeah, I know. I followed the account when it was still like at 82,000. But I think he's at like, I'm bringing up my Twitter right now. I'll tell you.
I guess I didn't really care. I was like, it could go either. If the people voted, they didn't want him, I was okay. If they did, if he didn't.
Well, the other thing Musk did with that poll is he was gathering information on botting.
Right, and that's what I was gonna say. I saw somebody reply to his tweet, and he actually.
Yeah, he said, yeah. He's
at 87.6 million followers.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was following 51 people. He is now following 49 people. So I don't know if that means that his account has actually done something, whether it means he's actually logged on and like fucked around with something, but it would appear like that's a possibility.
I think we can just give the GOAT crown to Trump for Twitter users. He's just the greatest Twitter user of all time.
Are we serious?
I think
that has to be Spike Cohen.
I think that his Twitter, like the way he used Twitter and utilized it as a marketing tool, is probably the best we've ever seen.
Well, even before he had any political aspirations, he was just like, your wife has a horse face.
Dude, he was savage.
That was funny, yeah.
Well, he had a ton of... People don't realize, like, he had a gigantic following on Twitter before he ran or did anything because of how good those tweets were. Like, he would just call out anybody.
Yeah.
So, it was good.
I guess my favorite Twitter guys has to be Spike Cohen, I would think, or Dave Smith still, because they're just, to me, they're the funniest guys at it.
Yeah, I tend to think that the best like troll accounts I follow are libertarian, but the best like overall accounts I see are like somewhere in the middle, or like news reporter.
Babylon B is probably the funniest stuff I've seen on Twitter.
Yeah,
Babylon B is hilarious.
I'm glad he brought Babylon B and Project Veritas back. So that's
Babylon B getting banned is what led to him buying Twitter.
That 100%. Was the final straw, yeah.
So they got banned, and he was like, "Oh, I should buy Twitter because this is dumb." And so now here we are. We live in the best timeline, where Hassan Piker today got a certificate to be able to say cracker from I think it was Wheat Thins.
Trump got tax cuts off his bankruptcies. Why wouldn't he do that for truth? Yeah. Great point. Dr. Claire Foster is a good follow. Yes, absolutely.
Shoe on Head is a great follow as well.
Shoes good on Twitter. She's she's also a bit of a troll at times. She is she can go after people. So I guess with the FTX stuff, we can kind of talk about that for a minute. You know, I'm still kind of looking into the whole like process. Do either of you know? Can either of you give a good like general description of what has gone on?
I think I can give a good one.
Okay.
I can give one as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you two take it away then, and you guys can. Ryan, you go ahead, and then Kareem, you can fill in anything.
Yeah. FTX essentially attempted fractional reserve crypto, and what led to their downfall was them reacquiring 100% of their shares back from the owner of another exchange CEO called Binance, and they used their own token, their FTT token, as the collateral for that buyout. So about 1.5 billion in FTT token was owned by this guy from Binance, and he saw a lot of the shady writing on the wall and whatnot, and all the weird happenings, like $1 billion in personal loans from like a sister company from FTX that gave $8 billion to the sister company, and then $1 billion in personal loans to the CEO, like a 1% interest rate or something absurd. And this guy decided to sell off all of his FTT token because all of the collateral FTX had was in FTT token. So he essentially crashed the market, and they no longer had the ability to cover for all the liquidity of all their customers because of all of this shady shit that they did, and essentially it was just bankruptcy from there.
Here's basically how that was a good analysis from a technical perspective. Basically, I would just say overall, from what I can see, Sam Bankman-Fried is one of those typical limousine liberal type people, and very much akin to Bernie Madoff, but in the crypto world. I don't think he was responsible to anything or knew what he was doing, or it could be the other thing. He was just pure nefarious, which I think it's a little bit of both. And because I sometimes I give the benefit of the doubt that people are just stupid and government.
I'm gonna take an opposite. I'm gonna take an opposite approach there. I disagree. I think the opposite. I think this guy knew exactly what he was doing.
But he's probably more malicious in this case. I will say that he's probably more malicious. The fact that he took all those funds and just ran is really, really suspicious. But what's even crazier is the FBI is like, we're going to investigate you. Pack up your bags. And to me, that's kind of funny. Why is the FBI telling you? The FBI doesn't really announce stuff, or they're not supposed to me.
Right.
Going after a criminal. He's just like, hey, let me post up here. We're coming. And then he's keep running away. So he did what's called in the crypto world just a rug and pull, where you have a bunch of funds, and you either just say, hey, go and invest in me, and you just pull it, and then everybody's funds are gone, or you just have them invest, and whales do this and they run off. But since he's pretty well known, and his girlfriend is one of I think she's the daughter of a head of the SEC or something like that.
Yes.
So it seems like the government protected him, and he donated, to Democrats, Republicans. There was stuff with the Ukraine thing as part of this money laundering issue, in my opinion, that was going for Ukrainian aid. In addition to that, this is a typical example of what you would call corporatism. The biggest problem I have with all this is crypto is supposed to be a decentralized mechanism. It's supposed to give like us, everybody in this room, and the common people, a way to actually make money and have money work like it was supposed to. Like you put your savings in, got interest, and you could do stuff with that. Now that the fiat system is so screwed, crypto is, to me, the best way to do it. Yeah, I'm not saying gold you can't make money on, but gold doesn't have the same abilities to do all that.
Gold's worthless.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
I will.
in terms of crypto, I would really only recommend Bitcoin because
Mhm.
I've heard a lot of whispering that a lot of smart people think Ethereum is going to collapse.
Yeah, Ethereum has. So I had invested. Ethereum was the only cryptocurrency that I ever really got into. It was that and Cardano. The problem that I see with Ethereum is that the smart contract systems and all that they're basing off of it doesn't really make a market. And there doesn't seem to be anything else that is able to fill that market space that they're claiming is there, but I just don't see. I see JC Ethereum as a big tech scam. Yeah, it seems to me that compared to Bitcoin, Ethereum has way less backing it, and a much smaller user base. So
Mm-hmm.
again, this is one of those situations where I think Bitcoin ultimately is probably still a good thing to invest in. It's still a good thing to trade in, obviously. I don't know if I can say the same for the general crypto space. I think that's something that everybody's going to have to take a real look at and kind of examine on their own. I think that obviously there are individual projects, individual currencies that are going to be built that I think are fine. But
Mm-hmm.
as a whole, I don't know if I'm going to be just, this is the trustworthy stamp of approval on shit. Because I think a lot of people do that in terms of just like, well, this thing can make people money, so obviously it's legit. And it's like, well, no, people can still make money and it can still be fucked. Like, this is a video here of Sam Breakenfried that I thought we'd watch. This is pretty funny.
You spend in politics should be disclosed. You spend in politics should be disclosed publicly. Are you comfortable with that?
I think that I think what I would say is, if there was a norm where every dollar that everyone donated in politics was to be disclosed publicly, I would have a lot of sympathy for that. I think I might support it. I haven't thought carefully about it enough to know. But
Well, it sounds like what you're saying is maybe there's some donations that you have made that you wouldn't make if you knew they were going to be immediately public.
So I think I don't generally think about it that way. I generally think of it as like these are the right the right contributions to make.
On the balance sheet of FTX is a line called Trump lose. And Sam was the second biggest donor to Democratic candidates.
I'm going to leave it to everybody else to draw their own conclusions about what you're saying here.
Right? Those are really, really ugly facts when you see a fraud of this magnitude having played out, and you find no regulators were there to prevent it.
So obviously he's quoting, well, we need regulators there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what he's saying is something else that actually makes a lot more sense to me, which is everybody's saying on the libertarian side, well, this guy donated to both sides. Well, I mean, he did. Most of the money was going to one of those sides. The he was donating a ton of money to Democrats. A lot of the Republicans that were getting money, in fact, were actually Republicans that were non-Trump supported candidates. Meaning these were people that were Republicans, but not really the type of Republicans that you would see liberty Republicans supporting. They're more of like your establishment style Republicans.
Yeah.
So what I think
McCarthy's
is
and those people.
exactly. And so what I think is really happening here is this dude was funneling money from his crypto scams into left-leaning politicians or people that would curb Trump-backed candidates. And in return, he was getting a ton of publication and media coverage from left-wing tabloids and from left-wing media, as well as getting coverage from Fox and groups like this because of the Republicans that he was supporting. So what you end up with is even once this shit blew up, I see a ton of people defending this guy in the media and defending the girl. Being like, oh, they're young and they were on drugs and they don't know what they're doing. Like, that's literally what the media is saying.
No,
like,
they knew what they were doing because they grew up around this game. They grew up around this racket. And they knew exactly what they were doing and they were cocky and didn't think they were going to get caught, and they wouldn't have if it weren't for the CEO of Binance.
Yeah.
It
And I've
still would have
heard,
been going on.
I know I'm having at the next week, actually, Monday, same day next week, I'll be having on a crypto bro to talk about things, but a little smarter one that has been on Fox News and some other platforms, and I'm going to be talking to him about kind of the ins and outs of what the market looks like, and kind of what kind of my concerns in crypto are. I've mentioned this before, but my ultimate concern with crypto is the fact that so much of it is based within fiat currency still. And until you create a void between those two things, I don't think crypto can really function to do what it's trying to do, which is ultimately be a currency and not just a stock that people trade. Which is what I think ultimately. I know people disagree with me, but I think right now crypto is being utilized as a stock that people trade and not as much as a currency as it should be. And that a lot of that comes down to, in my opinion, because 90 to 99% of the cryptocurrency that's out there is being gotten with or by fiat currency at the end of the day, or you're pulling it out with electric that you're paying with fiat currency. And at the end of the day, it's all going back to you having to use some form of either US dollar or some other fucking coinage to purchase stuff to get the crypto, or to purchase crypto itself, or you know the vast majority of the people in the market are just going on Coinbase and Robinhood and buying shit. And I don't think people take that into account enough, because if that's the case, then the majority of people are just taking fiat currency and turning it into cryptocurrency, which kind of tethers it to the value of that dollar a little bit too much for me, because
And it will. And the adoption of crypto will either be very slowly or all at once. There won't really be in between. It's either the dollar completely collapses and people are like, well, Bitcoin is like the only thing that has any sort of track record of being reliable, or you're going to start seeing slow adoption of like small businesses finding ways to be able to start taking crypto or Bitcoin or different things like that, or Elon Musk
to be honest with you,
starting to allow
it would be as simple
take
as
it.
it would be as simple as something like Cash App or PayPal or one of these services saying, hey, you can just load crypto in. We'll match the price to whatever the dollar amount is, and then you can just buy stuff. If they set it like that to where cryptocurrency could be used as a general currency, then that changes the way that the equation works. Because if the only thing you're using fiat currency for is to purchase the stuff to get the coins, and then everything else you're doing is being purchased with the crypto, then you can still create a pretty stable market that way. The problem is right now is like, if I want to buy cryptocurrency right this second, the only way that I can do it logistically easily would be to go to Safeway, load money on my Visa card, come back here and buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the majority of America is doing it right now. So until that changes, then you
And another
can't.
thing that would need to
I got a
change
plan
to
for
be
you, though.
used as currency is
Right.
the language around it,
Right.
because right now one Bitcoin is like $16,000 or whatever. We need to come up
Fractionalize it down. It needs to be
fractionalize it down
We can
to
do that.
a bottle of soda or pop or Coke or
I want
whatever
to
you
comment
call
on
it.
JC here. He says, looks like the economy is constipated at the moment. So I'm in a small town. I got 2,000 people living here. And rental costs are through the roof. Because it's right on the water, and it's a place people like to live because it's pretty and whatever. I work here, so I got pretty tired of the pretty mountains. Eventually that shit gets old. But the situation is this, like, when the market crashes here, the rentals aren't going to get cheaper. And people think they will, but they're wrong. And the reason they're wrong is because of how markets work. And if you understand how markets work, you know the prices aren't going to dip, which is this. It's supply and demand. I live in a small town with limited housing. There's only 4 or 5 apartment complexes in the entire place, but you have a lot of single family homes that get rented out by multiple people. Well, there's a ton of people who have leases right now, and when the market fucking crashes, those homes are going to go right back to the fucking bank. And when they go back to the bank isn't going to sell them immediately. They're just going to hold on to them and wait for the fucking market to fluctuate back, right? I mean, that's the smart thing to do. Well, all the while that goes on, everybody's going to still need housing down here to work and to take care of their kids and all the rest of the bullshit that you got to do to live, right? Well, there's already a finite number of homes here, and they're all full now. So you're not, there's no dip in the supply and demand ultimately. Like, so the market's not going to bring the price of those homes down. The money's going to be worth less. So the prices, if anything, are going to go up. Now the property values will go down, but the rental values won't, because everybody's still going to have to work. Everybody's still going to have to fucking live here. That's one of the biggest reasons why I'm trying to move out of this area, is because I think, and this is my theory, is most small towns are exactly like I just explained.
You're correct. I live in the town, and that is exactly how it is. There's one thing to consider, though. That is accumulation of real estate, precious metals, crypto, and all that stuff like we're talking about generally does hold its value. So
yeah, so here's my going problem, and I'll just address it with gold. And I posted a Radner rants, as I'm calling them on the channel, about this. But basically, every state that has had a gold rush or has gold in it still, especially the state that I'm in, is owned in most part by the federal government. And what that means is the government owns all the states that have gold, or at least the vast majority of them. And they can trade the value assets of those lands that they own without actually having to mine any of the gold, right? They can just say, well, give me a loan based on the gold that we can estimate is on this land, right? And then they get money for that. So it actually makes more sense right now for the government to keep all the gold in the ground, not open any mines, continue to stranglehold the market so that Africa and all these other smaller mining countries have to deliberate and use basically child and slave labor to get to it. And then at the end of the day, they can keep a complete market control on the value of gold. Realistically, in my view, gold should be about $125 an ounce.
That would make sense. That would make sense. And
that is the utility value of gold, meaning that's the value it holds in the occasional piece of jewelry that actually gets manufactured and sold, which is not as much as people think. And it also equates for the fact that it's used in certain electronics specifically. But the reality of it is everybody goes, well, it's used in all these products, you have to have gold. Well, not really. Most electronics that used gold have already swapped to other more synthetic materials so that they don't have to continue to use it because of the price hikes. So you end up with this situation where, like, I don't know if it's going to be nearly as valuable as it is. I estimated at about the $100 to $200 mark because I think that makes about sense for what its actual intrinsic value is versus a value that's just based off of, well, how much gold is in circulation. Well, the problem with you basing the value of gold off of the circulation of it is the federal government owns a bunch of the gold in the ground, and they have control over whether you can ever mine it. Like, in order for me to go get the right to mine gold, hard rock mine, I have to go apply to a state permit and go get mining rights to that area and that whole process. And the state can just tell me no because the feds have a finite number of mines operating at a single time in the state. And so unless you have money to get those contracts, you don't get to get none of their fucking stuff. So that limits you to like dredging and panning and stuff like that for smaller amounts of gold that
Okay.
can't really make you that much money anyway. What I'm talking about is like entire fucking mountains that were full of mines. So the story of Alaska gold mining is this. This absolute uber Chad named the Irish Prince fucking built a railroad through the pass.
Like that meme with the guy like this, thinking with like all the muscles.
No, actually, you know what? I'm gonna look up.
What is enlighten me? What is an Uber Chad?
This guy was he was a badass dude. Okay,
Yeah, that's like above a Giga Chad.
yeah, this guy rolled into an inhospitable shithole in the middle of a tundra and went, I'm gonna fucking put a railroad through there. And the government and all the banks were like, you're fucking insane. And he was like, nah, I'm gonna do it. And so he did it, and it opened up basically the entire gold trade for the Yukon. That was what brought in all of the gold rush here. Was the fact that he built that, and it wasn't the government who built it; it was a private fucking dude.
And I thought Liver King,
like most good things,
Liver King
it was
is
built by a private company or individual.
Big Mike Heaney is his name.
Yeah, hey, that'd be anarchy.
Yes.
You don't want free market.
Well, if you were in that area of Alaska at that time, it was pretty anarchist. That was the Soapy Smith days in my state, in Skagway. Soapy Smith was an outlaw who had killed a bunch of people in Texas and Kansas and a bunch of other states, who brought his gang up to Alaska to Skagway. And
Thanks for that announcement you actually got. Speaking of that, though, from the one guy on Tim Pool for the Joe Vogler thing, he's like,
I was really happy about that
discussion. You know,
I'm actually talking to I just sent an email and got a reply back from Bob Bird, who's the chair of the Alaska Independence Party, which is the guy who runs the party that Vogler founded. So he's going to be helping me get some information together with the book that I'm writing on him.
If states secede, would they vote in a federal election, or no? Would they be out?
So Joe Vogler's argument is not that we should secede necessarily. That's not technically what he said. What his argument is that all of the other territories and all of the other areas that were made states within the Union were given an option to become an independent country. But Alaska and Hawaii were never given that option. And so what his opinion is from a legal basis, it was illegal for them not to give us that option. And so from a legal level, we should be able to re-choose and make that decision again. And it was his decision at the time, and a lot of people's opinion, that it would be decided that we would be our own country because we were disconnected from all you fucks. So it's like,
yeah, honestly, I'm waiting. I'm really waiting for Alaska.
But the Virginia constitutional signing documents and New York explicitly state that they had the right to secede at any time, and so from a legal sense that they had the right to secede and become their own independent
absolutely
nation.
And I don't disagree with that either.
The federal government does not give a shit about what is legal.
No, obviously. And that was also Vogler's opinion. There was a reason why he was very, very anti-government. I mean, obviously that quote that I shared, Ryan, did you see the thing that I put on Twitter, the Tim Pool thing? I'll look up the quote and I'll play it. So we can listen to it. But I was going to look up, I was going to show you, this is a song about Big Mike Heaney, because there's a guy in Alaska who did a cover of one that's really good, but I'm trying to fucking find it. It's been a shit show because YouTube fucking buries. I feel like music on YouTube has gotten harder and harder to find over the last few years. Because I'm into obscure shit. Like I like weird bands and off the wall stuff.
Linton's listening to black metal at 4:00 in the morning.
I'm into some pretty obscure musical artists as well, and I haven't had any trouble finding them. Like,
I'm into KSE. Is that obscure?
I didn't know who KSE is.
Kill Switch Engage.
Oh.
Never heard of her.
Hey, man.
That itself just depressed.
Lysander Spooner said, I don't have to, because I didn't sign anything. I don't consent, so I'm out.
So this is a song about Big Mike Heaney that I can play because I don't think it's copyrighted in any way. So this is perfect. And I actually I commented on this nice guy's video, and he said it was he heard this is a song by Steve Heights originally. This guy's covering it. But this is about the guy I just referenced from the railroad.
Well, I was born one morning on the Overland Express. The brakeman was the midwife, the conductor, he was impressed. They knew I was a railroad man from the chew tucked in my teeth. I shrieked like a locomotive, had a spike between my teeth. He shrieked like a locomotive, had a spike between his teeth. Before I was old enough to walk, they had me laying track, crawling around, ties under my arm, the rail across my back. I warmed my bottle on the firebox, I helped to shovel coal, while the engineer would take his nap. I made the engine roll. While the engineer would take his nap, I made the engine roll. Drilling tunnels through the Rockies, drinking whiskey during the day. I grew up on the CPR Van Horn, leading the way. We laid tracks so fast that I didn't look up till a fish swam by to say he laid that railroad over a cliff into Vancouver Bay. Yes, he laid that railroad over a cliff into Vancouver Bay. As I stood there treading water, a fish swam close by to say they found gold up in the Klondike, 2,000 miles away. And so I hitched a ride on a humpback whale right out of Skagway town. The gold rush needed a railroad, I started breaking ground. The gold rush needed a railroad, I started breaking ground. Now with picks and shovels and powder and a wide-eyed gang of men, we blasted into the mountains and blast them down again. I used spider webs for trestles, fought with grizzly bears as well. Give me dynamite and sluice, I'll build a railway straight to hell.
And that's an actual quote from him. The bankers that told him that they weren't going to build a railroad there, he said, "Give me dynamite and snooze, and I'll build a railroad to hell."
Base.
Did you know? That's crazy.
No, dude's like the biggest, like one of the big folk heroes in the state, because his like contributions to everything was like the big reason why there was a gold rush here. But this is the clip from Tim Pool and stuff. I was happy this got like, I wanted this to get more views, but I knew it wouldn't.
He seems down. Tim Pool is kind of like okay. Sometimes he seems super like right wing, and then sometimes he's like, yeah, you know, we could do a little bit of state secession. So
yeah.
But what's amazing is since this undercurrent has been happening, it's not just Texas, right? Alaska has had an independence party since the 80s. The whole Joe Vogler story is pretty impressive. It should be a movie.
And you say the hell with them, and you renounce allegiance, and you pledge your efforts, your effects, your honor, your life to Alaska. That's how I do. I'm an Alaskan, see. And they know it. I've told them so, to go to hell in every way I can, in a nice way. I took a case to the Supreme Court, believing in the Supreme Court, that I'd rather be tried in a whorehouse with a madam as a judge. There's more justice. And if they don't like it, they know where they can go. The fires of hell are frozen glaciers. compared to my hatred for the American government. And I won't be buried under their damn flag. I'll be buried in Dawson. And when Alaska is an independent nation, they can bring my bones home, back to my country.
But
So that's Joe Vogler, speaking in that clip. Vogler was the big thing, the thing that pushed him over the edge. And anybody who wants to go look at this on YouTube, look up Battle at Weber Creek. I'm going to share the screen here, and we'll watch a brief second of it. But this is a YouTube documentary kind of series. This was one of the things that kind of made Vogler who he was, created the monster, if you will, because he had a mine, and the government went after him for having that mine, and he didn't appreciate that very much. So.
Mr. Vogler indicated that he didn't feel he needed a permit, and our chief ranger said that, in fact, under the current regulations that we have, that Mr. Vogler did need a permit, and asked him if he intended to get one, and he said he did not.
Rest in peace, Joe Vogler.
Wait a minute. That's what King George tried a little over 200 years ago, and it caused some problems back in the 13 colonies, and you know what happened to England. Well, I predict the same thing's going to happen here, because you're going to have to get a permit to do everything. Well, maybe they can jam it down this younger generation's throat, get them in the habit of getting a permit, but I'll tell you what, I'm too old to start that. I was not born to be a permittee.
So what went on here was basically Vogler had a mining operation, and there's a national park and federal wildlife lands all around that area. But that's technically public land. And he would take his cat, which is a pretty common mining vehicle in like Alaska, especially in the area he's in, to his mine and back to his home. Well, they landed helicopters and dropped feds on him while he was on his way to his mine, and informed him that, oh, well, the machine you're using causes damage to the federal lands, so you can't use it anymore. So you don't have access to your mine. Well, Vogler, rather than going and getting the permit that they wanted, or paying them, or doing this process, instead left the cat there. And then opened a court case and took it all the way to the state Supreme Court, to the like state court, to the highest court here in Alaska at the time, and won because, well, he was right. He's very well read within the law, and according to the law, you're allowed to make a road for public access on public lands, which is exactly what he was doing. And so it didn't end well for him. And it created a monster at the end of the day, because he hated the system that he had to deal with so fucking much that he created a political party and created an entire movement in the state that was the second largest political party for a long time here. Because he said, well, he started looking at the court documents, looking at the legal angle of it, because that's what he was into. And he said, well, fuck, man, why are we dealing with this? And I think something like...
Point, he would have already been into the mine.
I've got it right. That's a public highway. I don't have to get a permit to go out here on the public highway. You can be going down to rob a bank, and you've got a right to use that road. Why should anybody have a permit to travel? Who do they think they are? Is this what's coming in America? It's already been predicted you'll have to have a permit to travel from state to state. Are they going to do that in Alaska first? How much guts have they got? You know, I am really questioning where America's intended goal is, because everything I see is contrary to what it was. Well, I'm not going to be able to show you very much except a a country that
absolutely
we should have the right
JC
to go about in.
There are lessons
It's
here.
been
They
that
all
way
think
since
about
we've
us.
come up here. We've been able to move about freely and stake claims and cut timber and camp and fish and hunt. And if a park service is maintaining a park for the benefit of the public, they shouldn't be worrying about a few tracks out across the muskeg. They're the evidence of man's time here, of his activities here.
He was close. We figured probably around 8 miles.
You know, if they'd have just given us another, what would it take us? 10 minutes to be across the creek, and we'd have been up on the hill and long gone.
Joe Vogler's cat. Well, I hope we aren't looking at that 100 years from now and marveling over it and saying, gosh, it's still there.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It'll either move out of here without any permits, without any red tape, or it'll set here and rust into the ground.
That's what part of the litigation is about, is does Mr. Vogler in fact need a permit? And I don't know whether I can really speak to that issue. I think that a track across the ground is not something like the Steese Highway, and certainly you don't have to have a permit on the Steese.
Well, you know, in 1866, the American Congress passed an act. And in Section 8 of that, it says the right-of-way to construct a public highway across the public land which is not reserved for public use is hereby granted. And that's the law that justified the use of the pioneers that moved west across the plains, and it's the law that justified the early miners to build trails that are now the Steese Highway and the Elliott Highway and the Richardson Highway.
You know, if Mr. Vogler came in here this morning and he asked me for a permit, he could be driving that cat to his mine this afternoon.
They can go straight to hell, and hell will be frozen over solid before I'll do that. There's no compromise. The moment you start compromising, well, they're just going to keep backing you up. They get their foot in the door, it's like an elephant, and pretty soon the elephant's in and you're out. No way. I got a little bit rough with him because I said, Mr. Mahaley, now I said, I want to know the son of a bitch that's giving me the trouble. I want to meet him. He said, you will. Well, I haven't met him yet, but when I do, you can bet $1 that's the way I'm going to express him.
So now they show Jay Hammond and some of the other people in the state and a discussion with them. But the important thing is this is his process. This is what he was doing back then. He would go.
Convinced him that neither Roger Conter nor the Park Service has any authority over his use of the Bielenberg Trail. In his defense, Vogler cites the Federal Highways Act of 1866, commonly called Revised Statute, or RS 2477. This statute granted rights-of-way for highways over unreserved public lands. According to state law, even a backcountry trail may fall within the definition of a highway. Although RS 2477 was repealed in 1976, the highway rights-of-way already established under the law may still be valid. What makes this potentially a major test case revolves around the use that Vogler and others made of this trail, and whether their use was sufficient to qualify it for status as a highway under federal law.
Highway one use, I don't think, would probably be sufficient in Alaska, although it's been held that way in other states. But the trail in question here has been used for many, many years. It was a trail back in the 30s. I have evidence, a man's affidavit to that effect. And I don't see any possibility but what this has been used long enough so that it constituted an acceptance by the state and territory of Alaska.
Joe Vogler's affidavit came from here, Palm Springs, California. As unlike...
But I would suggest everybody go watch that. There isn't a ton of actual info out there with Vogler. It's difficult to find, obviously, because it's all local to the state of Alaska, and Alaska at the time wasn't super connected to like internet and that kind of stuff. But it is an interesting story that I'm piecing together. I'll have a lot of streams and stuff on it here coming up, but it's I'm getting together an archive of all the different footage and interviews that I can of him. There's a lot of stuff on DVD out there that I have to digitize. Yeah, so young libertarians really need to know what true role models look like. They need a gold standard to keep them on the right track. Yeah. I mentioned on group chats and things about Vogler in the sense that, like, what I think was so special about him is the fact that he remained principled, but that his principles were held in a stance that he could articulate really well, which is, why would I give them the right to do this stuff if I don't need to? Which was something at the time in this state, especially where you had the feds coming in and buying up everything and taking control of stuff, needed to be said. Because what ended up happening to Vogler, because I know Ryan's probably not too clued in. So
This is really the first I've heard of him.
So Joe Vogler, soon after this, created the Alaska Independence Party. He was involved in founding the Libertarian Party over here in Alaska as well. But he created the party, making the legal argument that the state should break off from the rest of the United States, as well as other things. But
Was he an
mainly,
anarchist?
no. Mainly those things were getting the feds completely out of the state of Alaska. But he was in discussions with Iran for a while and eventually got approved to go give a speech at the UN to give his legal argument there in favor of Alaska and Hawaii. And Iran gave him an hour slot at their hour slot at some UN junket that was happening. In 95, he was going to do that. In 94, he was reported missing by his neighbor. And then a couple weeks later, everybody searched for a long time. But eventually, a guy said that his body was buried under a tarp, and they ended up finding him dead. So he was shot and killed. And then the guy, Manfred West, was arrested for the crime. Later tried to recant his confession, but they denied that, and he's still in jail. I don't know that he's not a Fed. I just don't know that. If Manfred West killed him, Manfred West was told to kill him. It didn't happen by chance.
Oh, so a Fed told.
And
come on, tinfoil hat time, guys.
And he was about to give a speech that would have made his argument legally a lot more publicly viable. And so I think the citizens of Athens, the Battle of Athens is an interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
People should look at that. I just saw Josie up. He mentioned that in chat. But I've been writing a bunch about Vogler, so I have a ton of that info that's kind of just like
yes.
Just ton of info.
No, I'm interested to hear this, especially that guy brought it up in Timcast. I'm like, Leighton probably liked that they contacted you, and I was like, oh, okay, pretty cool. I mean, I have knowledge of Somalia and Gaelic Island a little bit, and some of Kospaya, so.
Mm-hmm.
But
all right, well, I think we covered everything we need to cover. If we want to close out here, I know we can plug. Everybody can give out their Twitter handles and stuff.
Like that platform.
Well, you could follow me. Mine's on screen. Mine's easy.
I'm still on Twitter, but
I'm at BulldogGamer28. Also, be sure to tune in to Break the Cycle Tuesdays, and then I think we're gonna be doing Fridays from now on.
Nice.
Or at least for the next couple of months, because Josh is adopting a kid and needs to take a class for that.
Number 76. Awesome.
Yes.
All right.
Everybody here in the live chat, I see in the live chat over there all the time. So
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will catch you guys in the next episode. Take it easy.